Welcome back to the Aro Benaiah Show. Today I'm speaking with Eugene Gershman, a real estate developer, investor, and podcast host of Real Estate Development, Land to Legacy. Eugene grew his company from two persons operation to managing over $30 million a year in projects, only to face the reality of a market crash and rebuild with resilience. His story is about risk, vision, and staying in the game long enough to win. Let's dive into the stories. Once again, it's good to have you on the show, Eugene.
Thank you, Aro. Thank you. Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me here.
So, Eugene, what was it like growing up?
What was it like growing up? I don't know. I just I've been growing up watching my dad work in construction and start his own business, and all I remember is that he was always angry, always stressed out, and I would spend a lot of my time in his office and thinking to myself, I never want to be in this business, like anything, but I don't want to deal with construction. It's too much work, too stressful, and something's always happening. Something's always going wrong. So I'm like, you know what, just no. And then, here we are 30 some years later, and I took over the business and ended up actually shutting down the construction company. But we shifted gears a few years ago. We started developing properties, and eventually we decided to close the construction company and focus 100% on real estate development. So that's what I do.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. I think it just speaks volumes. Entrepreneurship is something that even when you are done with your time in job, even going home, you still go home with the demand of what the business is all about. Entrepreneurship is very, very demanding. So more like, what was those your earlier roles in entrepreneurship? Let's say your first job and your first couples of job before you actually more like dive into your company and start doing what you do.
Absolutely, yeah. So my first job right out of college, I actually was still technically in college. I got an internship at this investment firm. It was doing it was like financial consulting, retirement planning firm. And what I was doing is running financial projections for folks that are planning their retirement.
Yeah.
And that was my thing. I was pretty good with numbers. I was pretty good with computers and Excel. And so I got pretty good at it. I thought that I would dedicate my life and career to financial services. I liked what I could achieve there. And I got my securities license. So I was able to buy and sell securities on my own, and then I got my insurance license so that I could sell life insurance products, things like that. But sales never really appealed to me, and running Excel models for older folks got boring very fast. So within a couple of years, I said, it's boring. So I went back to school, got my MBA, and my last year of my MBA, my dad calls me. He's like, I quit screwing around. I could use some good people in the company. It was a longer. I've been telling the story many times on other podcasts, so I don't want to go into the details. But it's essentially, yes, it's. He saw the potential. He saw what I could do as far as financial modeling, as far as financial management, and he lured me into the company, and so that's how I ended up joining the family business.
Wow, amazing. So, what has your experience been in the family business, and how were you able to change a whole lot of couples of things? And you actually grew the business a year to a very large whole sum of money. And how were you able to do that? More like doing the family business.
So the first few years were pretty challenging. When I joined the company, I obviously wouldn't trust it to manage anything of big importance, but I was still overseeing financial operations. I would manage the budgets. I would, review contracts, work together with our legal department. So I was able to learn a lot about how contracts are structured and how money flows within the company, and where the money gets earned and where the money gets spent between different departments. So that was important to me. After a few years, I was able to take charge of a small project that we were managing, and then a bigger project. And then from there, it sort of grew. Then I started managing the division of our company that focused mostly on real estate development. But it wasn't until we put together this model of partnerships that the company really started taking off. See, prior to that, the only business that we would generate would be either fee-based business as a general contractor, where we would get hired to do the work, or if it's our own development, then because we were fairly small and inexperienced, we would start with smaller projects. But we could do only so much because, the financing was limited. So a few years ago, we figured out this model almost by accident. We got invited to participate in a construction project as a general contractor. And the sponsor was looking for additional investors. And we said, look, we can invest our construction profits in this business and earn our equity share by investing our construction profits. And that was our first partnership deal many years ago. Since then, we started doing more and more of these projects. And then eventually, a few years ago, we said, this is going to be our business model. We want to be known as the real estate developer that partners with owners to help them develop projects. And that's how we were able to start scaling and growing the business, because now we weren't limited by our own resources, but we could work with pretty much anybody who would be willing to work with us.
Wow, this is really amazing. It's the fact that the partnership with the owners was now what make it easier for you people to actually more like scale the family business. So then the market shifted. What was the moment like for you personally and professionally?
I mean, we lost a ton of money. That was the last couple of years have been really painful. The crash came very fast. I almost said unexpected. It should have been expected. We got over leveraged. We took on too much at the same time. We started hiring too many people and trying to do too many things. I think one of our mistakes was that we tried to concentrate both development and construction under one umbrella. And now thinking back, I should not have done that. I should have engaged. My construction company wasn't experienced enough to do the types of projects that we took on. And the way to deal with it, I thought that we would just hire the necessary people to help run it. But the problem was in 2018, 2019, the market got so hot and construction jobs were in such high demand that we simply could not hire the quality people that we needed to be successful. And so we started hiring whoever we could. So made a few bad hiring decisions. And then we were able to borrow and leverage projects in an unprecedented way. In today's market, you'd never be able to do that. Some of our projects had more than 95% leverage. And because of that, when interest rates started going up, construction costs post-COVID were escalating rapidly. That inflation was no joke. It was the costs were changing very fast. It was very hard to lock in prices. The delays were very significant. Supply chain shortages, all of those things multiplied. And so we lost 3 projects around that time. And so that was very painful. We had to let go of a lot of people. That's when we decided to shut down the construction company and focus on development. And we said, let's go back to the basics and let's regrow. And that's where we're at today.
Wow, amazing. So, what is the biggest lessons you took from scaling too fast and having to scale back?
The biggest lesson is that it is not trivial to recruit people when you really need them. And what I was reminded of, so, over 20 years ago, I graduated with my master's in business administration. And as part of my MBA course, I took a lot of classes on marketing, on finance, on management. But in 20 years running a family business or being a part of the family business, I was able to forget a lot of the basics that we learned in school. And so having to go back and start over, I had to remember how it's supposed to be done. and go back to the basics and, remember marketing. But of course, 20 years ago, they had no idea what social media was.
Yeah.
They never taught us about social media. So now I had to learn not just the basic marketing principles. I've already learned them before. They really didn't change a whole lot, but how to use and utilize social media. That was new. The importance of, podcasting. That media never existed. So, but generally speaking, I was too busy running the business. What I'm trying to say, I was too busy building stuff, whether it's physical or in the office, but I didn't dedicate enough attention and enough budget, frankly, in my company to basics like marketing, sales, partnerships, and raising capital. Those are some of the some of the basics that you have to focus your attention on when you're in real estate development. And, I had to stop, slow down, and relearn all of that. It took me some time to, dust off my, what is it called? The ash from my shoulders after the big blow up of the business. And, just remember that life goes on and we need to regroup and we need to start over. And so that's that was the biggest lesson, is that that's what I would advise to anybody is, first of all, figure out how to sell your product, then figure out how to build it. You definitely need to either know how to build it or have somebody who can build it for you. But if you only know how to build the product and not how to sell it, it's pointless. Too many entrepreneurs, too many business people are focused way too much on delivery and not on marketing and sales. And and then once they build something, they can't sell it.
Wow, this is really key, because at the end of the day, what makes business survive is the fact that you are able to make sales. You're able to kind of, have a whole couple of clients you're actually rendering service to. If the goal is just to build up, it's at the end of the day, you have a fancy look, have everything in check, and still without any profitability coming into being, because there is no sales is not being mastered. And the fact that you make reference of it, that you can get started out with the sales and everything, but later learn how to build. But at first, still actually come forward and it really speak volume. So you say, oh, don't sell your land to develop it. Can you unpack the motto for us?
Yeah, of course. So a lot of people that are sitting on land, be it just vacant land, or maybe it is an old house, maybe it is an old strip mall. There's a lot of these properties that are passed from generation to generation. People inherit them. Sometimes people buy them because they're cheap and derive revenue. But then a time comes when the income that the property generates is no longer adequate, and they think that they've extracted as much as they could from it, or maybe if they inherited it, they don't want to manage it, and their initial reaction is to turn around and sell it. My question to people that decide to sell the property is, what are you going to do with the money? And in many cases, they tell me, I don't know, I'll probably invest it somewhere else, maybe reinvest it in real estate. And that's when I say, well, if you're going to take that money and reinvest it in some other piece of real estate, why subject yourself to potential tax impacts when you could double down and reinvest on your own property? If you inherited this property and maybe your parents bought it, maybe your grandparents bought it, maybe your great-grandparents bought this property, why sell it when you could literally reinvest into your own property and develop it into something bigger? And then development is an opportunity to increase the value of the land. If it's an old house, tear it down, build something new, turn it into a new income property, and give it new life. That would be a way for you to reinvest, double down on the land that you already own, create something new. We primarily deal with housing, multifamily, single family, apartments, condominiums, homes, townhomes, and help people find new homes if you're building housing, and just create something new. And that's what our mission is to help people realize that they don't need to sell their land. They need to find partners like us to help them develop it. We'll guide you through the entire process, and show you how to add that, how to add value.
Wow, amazing. Thank you, Eugene. And I think it really speaks volumes. A whole lot of persons actually more like seeing it from the end that yes, I could just sell my land and use the money to reinvest. I think the fact that you just make reference of tax, it just shows that yes, I did actually look at that particular line before, but the fact that you make reference of it just shows that it will better you kind of work on that particular land, develop it, and if yeah, make it more valuable because then you don't have to figure out task, which comes from reselling and having to kind of reinvest in another company. So for listener new to real estate, how do you joint venture actually work, and why are they powerful?
So every deal literally is absolutely different. We're having so many conversations. My days, my calendar's full with conversations with people from all over United States, and I get asked this question, and when I find out what their situation is, it changes the way I answer it. And literally because every deal is different. But in general terms, the joint venture works about so. So in the beginning, we are engaged almost as a third-party consultant. So the very first step that we have to do is we need to do a feasibility study. We need to determine what can be built on this land, how much is going to cost, what the regulatory platform is like, what the permitting process is like in this municipality, what the costs are, and what we could sell it or rent the finished product for. So that feasibility study process is something we do as a hired consultant. The reason we do that is because we're not yet partners. We don't know what we're partnering on. We don't know the value of the land yet. We don't know what could be built there, and we don't know the finished value that we're going to deliver. So after we finish the feasibility study, that's when we move on to the next stage, which is early conceptual planning. And at that point, we need to figure out how the development is going to be financed. There are multiple different ways of financing it. Many owners have additional cash that they are willing to invest. Maybe they have friends and family that could join the early stages of development. We can certainly go out to our network of professionals and investors and pitch this product as an early opportunity. So we need to raise capital to finance the early stages of development. In many cases, and that is frankly the easiest way to get initial capital, is we just leverage the land. We borrow against the land to, usually we can get up to 50% of its value. And that cash would allow us to go through the early stages of development, get the permits or get close to obtaining permits, and start marketing the product for construction to investors for the construction stage. At that point, we form an actual joint venture. So our company is working, our model is we do not charge any profit for the work that we do up until the time we're completely finished with the project. We are usually the last ones who get paid. So first, the way we describe it is first, all the vendors get paid. So your contractors, your suppliers, your consultants, your city hall gets paid their permit fees. Then after that, your lender gets paid. Lender's usually first in line after all the vendors are paid. So first the lender gets paid, then limited partners. So all of the investors that joined at a later stage, they get paid next. After that, the original sponsor, so the property owner, gets paid. And only at the very end, if there's any money left, then we can get our profit. So for the duration of the entire project, yes, we do get our basic costs and overhead covered out of the project budget, but a lot of times we could be in a deal for 5 years and not realize any profit. So it's definitely not enough for us to sustain the business and grow. But that's our model. So our profit is back-ended in the project. That's our equity participation in the deal. And then we do all the work that's necessary. We put together the team, we run all the numbers, we push the permits, we manage the work of architects and engineers, we find the contractor, and then we manage the work between the contractor and the design team. And then at the very end, we manage the sales or the lease-up team. Um, and then finally, we refinance. If it's a rental product, we help refinance it, and plan for eventual exit. But so that's
Wa-
in general terms how the deals are structured. But then every single deal has its own nuances.
Wow, this is really, really amazing. Thank you for walking us through it. So what is the biggest red flag you look out for in a deal?
Um, Sorry, can you repeat the question again?
What is the biggest red flag you look out for in a deal?
The biggest red flag. Good question. Good question. I would say the biggest red flag is what is the motivation of the original owner?
Hmm.
What are their goals? And that is important to me because we don't want to work with just anybody. We don't want to work with people that all they care about is, profit, for example. They don't care what they have to do. They don't care who they have to hurt, as long as they make profit. That's not my interest. My interest is to build a profitable business, yes, but also to make an impact in the community, to make an impact, um, in the market in general, and to build long-term relationships. So, some of the red flags that I see is when somebody's too focused on the numbers. They don't want to care about the process. They don't want to care about who I am. They don't want to care about my experience. All they want to know is how much do I get paid? When do I get paid? How much do they get? They want to see guarantees. We had a partner who would always want to see what are the guarantees. And I'm like, look, this is an investment. I cannot guarantee you. It's not legal for me to guarantee any results to you. I could get in trouble if I say, I guarantee you that this is going to be successful. No, I don't know. But those are typically red flags from just the relationship standpoint. It is very important for me to have good rapport with my partners, and I want them to trust me and I want to trust them. So that's the first thing that I look for. The next thing is just project property related. Not everything could be developed. There are a lot of unrealistic expectations. We've done a lot of difficult projects. My company's expertise is building on projects on wetlands, on in critical areas, steep slopes, things that are typically very difficult to overcome. They cost a lot of money, and they're just challenging from a regulatory standpoint. So I look for things like that. Back in the day, I used to be proud of building this super cool house on a very steep slope. Yes, we got it done. Honestly, looking back, we didn't make a ton of profit on it. It was a beautiful home. It's nice to put it on a postcard and on our website. But as a commercial project, I would not advise anybody to do that unless there's some vanity component to it. If it's a commercial project, I would say no. So there are red flags like that. Are we being realistic with what we're trying to achieve there? I've built a project before, a mixed use development on a very small piece of land in the past. I got it done. It took me way longer than I thought it would. It was a lot more expensive than I thought it would be. And it was a pain in the ass. And now, looking back, when people call me and say, oh, I want to maximize the value of this property and I want to build, this huge project and I only have this postage size lot, I tell them, look, I can do that. I've done this before, but you just need to realize the risk. And, so those are important things. Is it a red flag? Yeah, somewhat. Definitely something that I would want my partners to understand and understand the risks. When somebody tells me, "Oh, this is a no-brainer," when somebody says it's a no-brainer, it usually means you got to look at it one more time.
Wow, thank you so much. I think the fact that you analyze what red flag is and the fact that you get to kind of connect with the property owner to be able to know what their expectation is, and yeah, every particular indices check out before you actually go all ahead towards development of the project. and you actually make reference of a whole lot of things in respect of risk. So, what role does risk management play in every project you take on?
What role? Well, I mean, it's risk reward, right? So if you're willing to take on a greater risk, then you should expect a greater reward. If the reward is not comparable, let's say, so my benchmark is to double investments money on every deal. And let's say we're looking at oversized risk for whatever reason. Maybe it's environmental concerns, maybe it's something else. If the return possibility is not increased, by a certain factor, then I would say it's not worth that extra risk because your return profile is the same as a project without this risk. And so these are the things that you have to weigh. And then you have to be comfortable with it. Because I've lost so much in the past, I'm very much risk averse right now. I would say, let's not do risky projects. Let's find a way to de-risk it and figure out how to make it work. Even if it means borrowing less money. That's, by the way, my greatest recommendation to any developer is do not borrow too much. Whenever you borrow too much money, you're subjecting yourself and your investors to a huge downfall. Yes, if everything goes great, you can make a lot more money than another project. But in my experience, I'd rather go slower, and I would rather make less, but not risk so much. So, that's the main thing that I would advise to look at.
Yeah, wow. Thank you so much. So, what system or tech have been most effective in streamlining your project?
What system?
Yeah, or tech that's actually more like help you a whole lot in streamlining the project you carry on.
Oh, technology. I mean, I'm still, um, I'm still an Excel guy. I run all my models in Excel. Obviously, AI last couple of years has been very crucial. It just saves us so much time. But a lot of times, like recently, last month, I think I've been very angry with ChatGPT because it's been making so many mistakes. And I'm like, dude, I could have done it by myself already, but I keep like reusing the prompt. I'm like, no, fix it, no, fix it. So, we've recently been playing around with different AI models. I've been using Grok a lot. I've been using Gemini a lot. But that does save a ton of time, especially doing feasibility studies. In the past, it would take us sometimes, weeks to do basic analysis, code analysis. These days, it takes me, still takes me a few hours, even using AI. When I ask AI to scan the land use code and tell me what parameters I need to be watching out for, I need to read it through, then I need to submit a follow-up prompt, then I need to say, okay, well, if I can't do this, can I do it the other way around? Can I, how can I restructure this deal for it to make sense? So, still takes time. But yeah, as far as the tools, mostly Excel, where I'm on Microsoft ecosystem, so I don't do Google.
Yeah.
My recent experiments with Gemini has been frustrating because it's so tied into Google ecosystem. But it's fine. It is what it is. But yeah, I'm a desk guy, so I'm mostly behind the desk on video calls, telephone calls, emails. When I run numbers, when I run projections, I'm in Excel, and when I do analysis, I use AI. So that's my toolkit.
Yeah, thank you, Eugene. And can you share an example of a project that almost didn't work, but you managed to turn it around?
Sorry, Ara, was breaking up really badly. Could you repeat that?
Yeah, can you give us an example of a particular project that's almost didn't work, but you're able to turn it around and it did work?
Something that didn't work and then we were able to turn it around. I mean, my classic example that I love is a few years ago, we were working on this townhomes project. And we the way it was actually one of our own, it wasn't a partnership, but the way we ended up with it is I got a call from a broker friend who said, hey, I've got this property. It's in a great location. Another client of mine wants to buy it, but they are unable to write an offer on it right now. Do you mind just putting an offer on it? You'll have 4-month feasibility study period. You can back out. If they don't take over, then you can back out. There's no risk to you. And I said, fine. I don't usually do that. I don't like doing that, tying up land, but he's a good friend. I said, fine, I'll do that for you. So we tied up the land. 3 months go by. I call him up. I'm like, hey, I've got a few weeks left before my feasibility ends. I need to back out of the contract. What's up with your friend? He goes, yeah, no, my friend said they're not able to buy it right now. They have some other issues. So I'm like, okay, well, I guess we'll exit the contract. He goes, well, do you mind taking a look at the property? Maybe it would make sense for you guys. So I'm like, okay, fine. Since we already have it under contract, let me study it. And so we studied the property. It's a large site. I forget the acreage now, but I think something around, I want to say 2 acres or something like that. But the problem is it had some wetlands and it had a creek that was passing through the property. And so our code requires a large buffer from the creek, something like, I want to say 60, I think it was a 60 or 100-foot buffer, and then an additional setback from the buffer. And so when we drew the line of actual buildable site, we couldn't build anything. And so I said, yeah, I don't think it's going to work. But then how did it work? Oh, we took another look at it, and we actually met with the city, and we said, is there anything that we could do? The city suggested that there are things that we could do to mitigate the buffer and to apply for reduction. So then we hired an environmental consulting firm who helped us structure the deal. We came back to the city and we said, let us clean up this creek. There was a lot of garbage there. There were homeless people staying on the property. There was a lot of invasive plants growing. And so we said, let us clean all that up. Let us get rid of all the invasive plants. We'll build a park here. But in exchange, we would like to increase the buildable area. And so the city allowed us to do that. It was a lengthy process. It was a 2-step process. We had to first apply for what they call critical area exemption. So we were able to get the critical area exemption. And then we designed the house. So instead of having like a tiny little piece of land that nothing would fit, we were able to build 12 townhomes on that property. Ooh. With two-car garage in each. And ended up being a pretty successful development at the time.
Wow, amazing. Thanks so much for that. So many people think real estate is about just buying and selling. What do most people get wrong about development?
I love this question. The people that I talk to, I split them into like 2 different camps. One group of people thinks that real estate development is so easy, anybody can do it. All they have to do is hire an architect, hire a contractor, and it'll get done. And then the other group of people think that real estate is so hard, they would rather plan a mission to the moon than try to develop their real estate. and so my goal and my mission, and part of the reason why I am posting so much on social media and I have my real estate development podcast, is to try to bridge the gap between these 2 groups. That development is more complicated than you might think. There are a lot of things that could go wrong. There's a lot of questions that you need to know to ask so that you could avoid losing a lot of money and making a lot of mistakes. But it's not so complicated like some people think. Yes, there's risk involved, but if you work with somebody who knows what they're doing, if you've done it before, if you ask the right questions, then there's definitely ways to mitigate the risk and bridge the 2 camps together to execute good projects.
Wow, amazing. Thanks for that. So how can small investor and property owner get involved into development without massive capital?
Without massive capital, the only way I would advise to do it is to find capital, honestly. So if you already have the land, then you will still need additional capital to see develop. And there's ways to attract investors. There's plenty of investors out there who are looking for good opportunities. Another way, if you don't own the land and don't have the money, then definitely align yourself with a group that knows how to do this. But bottom line is you either need to know how to develop or have the capital to get a project developed. And I love the social media and the ad headlines, all the promotion around invest in real estate without having any money. That's a myth. You can't do that. You really need the money to develop real estate or to invest in real estate. Now, you can do that if you align yourself with somebody else. If you know how to manage, then there are people who would trust you with their money if you know how to manage and you could prove it to them. Or in my case, if you have the land, I will help you develop it and I will help bring investors because they know that I know how to manage. I know how to develop, I know how to build. And so that's how we can get it done together.
Wow,
But yeah,
wow.
partnerships are super important, and ultimately you will still need the capital.
So how do you actually more like how do you approach raising capital in today's volatile market?
How do I approach raising capital? Talk to a lot of people. That's what it's all about. Talk to as many people as you can, and make your message be heard. Be different, stand out from the crowd. There's a lot of people trying to raise capital right now. There's a lot of projects that are sitting and not able to get off the ground because they don't have enough capital. But yeah, it's doing the podcast. It's talking to people like you. It's being on the phone all day long and, pounding the pavement, as they say.
Yeah, thank you. So looking back, what will you do differently if you are just starting out today, Eugene?
What would I do differently? Well, I would primarily start with reducing my overhead as much as possible. When I started in business, the first thing I did was rented an office. Of course, 20 plus years ago, working from home was weird. Nobody did that.
Yeah.
Today, everybody works from home. So if you're starting from scratch, you don't need an office. You could do pretty much anything from your bedroom. Second is create a brand and start talking to people. I think social media is extremely important. LinkedIn has probably been my most important tool as far as social media tool. I'm still on YouTube and Instagram and all the other channels and Facebook, but it's LinkedIn where I get most of my professional connections. And start talking to people, start going to all the local events, networking groups, chamber meetings, downtown association meetings, whatever you can do. BizNow is another thing that we participate in regularly, and talk to as many people. It's remember, it's not about what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah, it's not about what you know, but who you know. I think it really speaks volumes to times has changed, unlike before where you need to get more like a company space, a space where you do business compared to now. You could basically start from your room and figure it out in a way just to reduce the bottom line, the overhead line,
Yep.
so that at the end of the day you won't run at loss when we're just starting out. So what advice do you have for someone trying to break into real estate development in 2025?
What advice I have? Well, I think the main advice is if you've never done it before, then don't try to do it on your own, right away. Definitely align yourself with somebody who's done it before. If you're trying to develop your own piece of real estate, get a partner who knows what they're doing, learn from them. One of the things that I tell my property owners is that, look, if you want to learn to do what I do, I would have you sit in all the meetings. You can be part of the decision-making process.
Yeah.
I'm happy to share information. I'm happy to share the knowledge so that on the next project, you could do it on your own. But yeah, that's probably the biggest advice is if you want to do it on your own and you've never done it before, then don't be on your own right away. Start with somebody else. And then, start slow. Don't go for a huge project right away. It doesn't matter if you've got a couple $1,000,000 to burn, you will burn it if you've never done it before.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So,
Thank you so much. And finally, what is your vision for the next chapter of your journey and that of your company?
my vision is to leave a mark pretty much anywhere we go. Right now, we are open to opportunities nationwide in the United States, and I'm truly looking forward to capturing, all 50 states if I could. Right now, we have opportunities up and down the West Coast. We're looking at a few opportunities back east, down south, and I would like to be known as the developer who a property owner could call to develop their land. So if somebody is thinking about developing their site, I want them to, come visit GIS companies first before they go Google it. That's kind of my goal, so that as many people could learn how to do that, as many people could be comfortable doing that, and ultimately we could build some more homes for people to live.
Wow, amazing. Thank you so much, Eugene. Eugene, how can my audience connect more with you? How can they do business with you? And what platform is easier for them to reach out to?
I'm everywhere in social media. If they look up my name, Eugene Gershman, they'll find me. LinkedIn is my primary platform. Just look me up, Eugene Gershman. And other than that, giscompanies.co, that's our website. Check out the site. There's a blog section with a lot of news and information. We have a bunch of freebies on the website. If you want to learn about real estate development and figure out how to do your own feasibility study, we have a feasibility study checklist on the website. So you could literally download the form, and there's a 7-step checklist that you can go through to do it on your own if you want to. Or if you would like help with your feasibility study, give us a call. We're happy to help out. But giscompanies.co, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, EG_developer. Give me a shot.
Wow, thank you so much.
Don't forget to check out Real Estate Development Land to Legacy. That's my podcast where I talk a lot about real estate.
Okay. Thank you so much, Eugene. Now, thanks for sharing such an honest and insightful look into the world of real estate development. Your journey from rapid growth to resilience and rebuilding is full of lessons for anyone chasing long-term success. And for those who want to learn more, visit giscompany.co/feasibility study to explore its resources and insights. Until next time, remember, don't just sell your land, develop it. It's a pleasure having you on the show. Thanks for actually showing
Thank
up.
you very much, Aro. It's a pleasure to be your guest